When you show how two things are similar, it's called a metaphor. Now here's why Monopoly would make a good metaphor for the parts of a cell. Mitochondria.
This organelle, while commonly known as the powerhouse of the cell, does not actually create energy. Instead, it is the location in the cell in which aerobic respiration occurs, which releases the energy in the bonds of glucose and puts them into bonds in ATP, much like when one liquidates their financial assets by means of mortgaging properties that they have. For this reason, the ability to mortgage properties in Monopoly would serve as an analog for mitochondria.
Nucleolus. This round body, located in the nucleus of the cell, is where the DNA resides and makes ribosomal subunits for proteins, also known as RNA. We decided that the game disc would best represent the nucleolus due to the fact that the disc is truly what contains the instructions, i.e. the texture upon the reflective side of the disc to go at either one angle or another when light is shined on it to be translated as a 1 or an O, to tell the game what to do, much like the nucleolus contains the DNA.
Nucleus.
This acts to maintain the integrity of the genes and control the activity of the cell by means of regulating the expression of the genetic material. It could be seen as where the genes in the DNA are read and thus can go do their job. For that reason, we drew a parallel between the Wii itself and the nucleus of a cell, because the information on the disk could do nothing if not for the Wii's hardware reading program and its OS giving it an environment in which to operate. Additionally, you could literally put the disk in the Wii, so it makes sense from that point as well.
The endoplasmic reticulum is a tiny folded membrane that is covered in ribosomes, is attached to the nuclear envelope, and is where proteins are synthesized and packaged within the cell. For that reason, it can be seen as the true location where the instructions from DNA are carried out, because that is where proteins are made, and proteins could really be seen as the final stage of outputting the cell. For that reason, we would consider the television on which the game is played to be an accurate analog of the rough endoplasmic reticulum, because first of all, it is attached to the Wii, which, if you'll remember, is the nucleus, and it makes the DNA meaningful by means of getting effective output, in this case being proteins, and in the case of the television, being light and sound.
Smooth endoplasmic reticulum!
This folded sheet of an organelle, similar to the rough ER in all aspects except the fact that it is not attached to the nuclear envelope and is not dotted with ribosomes, is used to make lipids and act as a storage area in the cell. Due to its role as a storage unit in the cell, we have decided that each player's inventory would be an adequate analog of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. For that is where lipids and other such items are stored.
Centrioles. The function of the centriole is to help cell division within animal cells. The way that it performs this action is that it helps separate chromosomes into spindle fibers during cell division, much like the banker of the game would actually do so with money. For that reason, we would consider the banker of the game of Monopoly, which in the case of this shovelware would be the small white man with the amazing mustache, to be the Centrioles, because, as previously said, he divides money and separates it between players, much like the Centrioles divide out the deoxyribonucleic acid vacuole.
The whole point of the Monopoly game is really to just get a bunch of stuff. The same can be said about life, but due to the law of conservation of matter, new stuff can never really be created. So there needs to be a place to store that stuff until it's in use. In the game of Monopoly, that is the bank. It holds the properties, money, and even hotels and game pieces that aren't currently in use, much like a vacuole within a cell holds food and nutrients until they are needed. That is why the vacuole is best represented by the bank of Monopoly. Cell membrane. This phospholipid bilayer functions to separate the outside of the cell from the inside of the cell. In layman's terms, that means that without this, all the parts of the cell would just float away into the oblivion of space and get lost, which means it would die, or never be able to go through the process of life again. For that reason, we would consider the game's box to be the best analog for a cell, because without the box, you'd never be able to play the game again, because you'd lose all the pieces.
shifting lattice of structural and contractile components made of microtubules, microfilaments, and larger filaments that serve as a structural support and transport mechanism. In layman's term, that means it gives the cell its shape. For that reason, we chose the board as a good representation of the cell's cytoskeleton, because the game board creates the shape and path of the game.
Golgi Apparatus.
It is an organelle consisting of layers of flattened sacs that takes up and processes secretory and synthetic products from the endoplasmic reticulum and then either releases the finished products into various parts of the cell cytoplasm or secretes them to the outside of the cell. In other words, this is the bus of the cell that carries everything around, which is why we consider the game pieces of Monopoly to be perfect analogies for the Golgi bodies, for they are what moves the person playing the game around and then releases them to their destination.
Lysosome.
These are numerous organelles that function to remove waste and digest by means of secreting digestive enzymes to break down worn-out organelles, food particles, and engulfed viruses or bacteria. For that reason, I would like to consider this the jail because it breaks things down, such as people's families, and breaks apart turns by limiting how many times one may move.